back with another episode of JR Takes. As always, Ryan and I giving you the latest Seattle sports news and NFL news. And Ryan made a pretty big trade after we recorded last week's episode for Sam Howell. A little unexpected amongst us as fans, but I gotta say, I was a little happy with the trade. A little worrisome at the beginning, trading, moving down in the draft for those picks. But what are your overall thoughts on Sam Howell and being the new addition to the quarterback room?
Yeah, definitely caught off guard by it. I didn't hear really any rumors about this happening at all, which is rare for something to, truly come out of left field like that. Although the morning of the trade, I remember seeing one person, I think Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks, was like, don't be surprised if the Seahawks make a move for Sam Howell. John Schneider liked them a lot at the Combine. And then sure enough, later that day. So I think as we got closer, word started getting out on it. But yeah, definitely was surprised. And when I first read the compensation that we gave up a third, I was like, really? A third and a fifth for Sam Howell? But then I realized we basically just moved back with 2 picks and got a quarterback that honestly, after you get past Drake, May, Jaden Daniels, he's younger than half of the quarterbacks coming out in the draft this year. And
he also has a year of experience in the NFL, which is something that
as a
those
starter
guys don't
too.
have. Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of crashed and burned towards the end of 2023, but midway through the season, Sam Howell was looking like he was the Commanders' future franchise quarterback. He was tearing it up. He was leading the league in passing yards, and I think ultimately Bieniemy's offense was just asking him to do way too much in a not very good situation.
Well, anytime you're asking a first-year starter to pass the ball over 620 times, which led the league.
Yeah, that's insane.
With no run game, what are you guys doing? No wonder he didn't have success towards the end.
I feel like I've only seen Matt Stafford throw 600 times, and that's it. Maybe Drew Brees one time. Those are the only 2 names I can think of that were in that high volume of an offense. And to ask a guy that was 22 at the start of the season to do that, it's kind of mind-boggling. So I think the talent and upside is definitely there with Sam Howell, and the fact that bottom line, you look at the nature of what we have in him, which is at worst one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league for $1 million a year, essentially. That's a phenomenal trade. It's not like you don't need a backup quarterback. And you look at guys I know you love Minshew, but Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, all these guys that have kind of bounced around the league for years and probably aren't going to play, they're getting $7 million a year contracts to be a backup. Drew Lock got over $5 million, I believe. So just from a purely cap perspective, it's a phenomenal move. And I think, I don't really think it's going to be an open competition for the starting role this year, but you never know what happens. And if he shows enough, at the practice field and training camp and whatever, we could be looking at him as the 2025 option to, at that point move on from Geno. Unless Geno, absolutely tears it up, and then I think they'll probably commit to him long term. But I think it puts us in a spot where we have a very good outlook at the quarterback position, and we don't need to reach in the draft to fill that need.
Well, I liked what I saw from Sam last season. Certainly showed me the talent that was there, but I think it was you back on our second episode. We're throwing it back a little bit. Colby, if you want to pull that clip up, we got Ryan showing sort of his perspective on Sam Howell back in, 2022?
Yeah, so this was the 2022 mock we did.
One pick in the first round where everyone's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I think people have been sleeping on Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell has a really good deep ball. He's just about the same size that Drew Brees was, maybe a little bigger. But the thing about Sam Howell that intrigues me is he's not fast, but for some reason he was one of the best rushing quarterbacks in college football last season. He bowls over people, he bounces off of tacklers. He's not that big. It makes no sense, but he just does it. But I see the Saints.
Yeah, obviously the Saints didn't pick him, which I think they should have, given what they've done at the quarterback position since then. Derek Carr, awful. they're like, here, you want $80 million? Take it. And they're just fucked. But they love doing that at every position.
Well, kind of going off of what you said, I looked up a couple notes on Sam Howell. Last season, he rushed for 264 yards, had 5.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. That's no slouch.
I didn't realize he had 5 rushing touchdowns last year.
He can move around. And he was also 10th in the league in big-time throws, according to Pro Football Focus, which I had to honestly look up what the exact definition of a big-time throw was, because I was like, oh, it's kind of an intriguing stat. And essentially what it is, it's a big-time throw is on the highest end of both difficulty and value. So while the value is easy to see statistically, the difficulty has more to do with passes that have a lower completion percentage. So essentially he was making connections downfield on deep balls. Mm-hmm. And another guy that leads the league in that is Josh Allen. And you see like a little bit of that in Sam Howell's game. He can move around. I mean, those 2 scores against Seattle were essentially the same play, just reversed, and him scrambling out of the pocket, finding his man, and throwing a dart to, I think it was the tight end. I can't remember his name.
One of them was to the running back. I can't remember his name either. But I remember that crazy play Sam Howell made against us last year when we're basically, it's like 3rd down, they're at midfield, and you're like, all right, let's get this over with so we win the game. I think we were up by 7. And Sam Howell throws a fucking 40-yard strike in between 3 defenders to Curtis Samuel, who just takes it into the end zone to tie the game. That was insane. And so it's kind of cool that he had arguably his best performance of the year against us. Granted, that says a lot about our defense last year. However, the point remains, we got to watch him play against our defense last year and kind of put on a show. So it's cool that now he's going to be on the other side of the field on our sideline.
Right, and just going back to the as far as overall value and what we're going to be paying him, I mean, 2 years of around $1.5 million, that is a steal for someone that has a year of NFL experience and could essentially, I mean, if we move on from Geno after this season for whatever reason, we could plug in Sam Howell, and I'm confident, he could win us some ball games. So
And you never know. He's younger right now than Russell Wilson was when we drafted him. Right. He's a super young player still. He's younger than Bo Nix. He's younger than Michael Penix. He's basically the same age as Jaden Daniels, who's about to get drafted, top 3 probably. So it's basically like we spent, moving back in the mid rounds for that. Like that was our
for
draft
a quarterback
pick.
In the middle of the 5 that are going. Well, maybe not in the middle of there, but right around the. I would say him and JJ probably have similar value as far as their age and what their ceiling could be. So yeah, I really like the trade overall. Reflecting on it, I'm happy that we have Sam aboard the team.
And I like Sam's arm better than JJ McCarthy's. I mean, JJ, I think he's kind of just a complete mystery box because he's shown really. I think he could end up being really good, but he was just asked to do so little at Michigan.
Right.
It's hard to project, but the good we've seen from Sam Howell is legit. Just got to get the turnovers and the sacks figured out, which I think if he watches Geno for a year, that could help a lot with. Because, people, for some reason, the Seahawks fandom treats Geno like he's a turnover machine and takes a bunch of sacks. He was top 10 in avoiding pressures last year, and I think at worst middle of the pack in turnover-worthy throws, but I think still towards the bottom. So that's just a narrative that's what happens when you have a top 5 quarterback for 10 years and you move on from him. People's standards are a little ridiculous.
I think Geno is solid. I don't think he has the explosive playmaking that Russ had. And I think that's maybe what people are they're lacking seeing that. And so they're, drawing these false accusations of him being a turnover machine when that's just simply not the case.
Yeah, the way I would put it is Geno is actually better than even peak Russ was at operating within structure. I think Geno's really good at that when you give him time and just basically enough time to go through his progressions. But he's not nearly as dynamic or as explosive as you said. Like Russ just constantly and routinely made these ridiculous highlight reel plays that you've never seen anyone else make before or since. Like he was truly special. But that was his play style, and we've seen as he's gotten older and doing that's gotten more difficult. And frankly, as NFL defenses have changed to do a lot more too high safety to, basically eliminate what Mahomes, Allen, and Russ were doing in like the late 2010s. I think that's been bad for the watchability of the sport, to be honest, because the deep ball is just like no one's really hitting it like they used to because they're just selling out to stop that. But look at how Russ has performed the last couple of years. I think a lot of it's been circumstantial, but you started to see it in 2020. If you want to go all the way back, almost 4 seasons now, once defenses started to make that switch in the middle of that COVID season, that's kind of when that whole season fell off the rails for the Seahawks, and when Russ went off that crazy MVP pace he was on to just like pretty good to okay. So I kind of forgot what I was even talking about, but yeah.
The Vic Fangio effect, basically, about the safeties.
He ruined the modern NFL. He made it objectively worse because now it's just check down Charlie. Brock, look how good Brock Purdy did. Because the way defense is played right now is like structured to force quarterbacks to just bop, bop, bop up and down the field. I hate it, if you can't tell.
Yeah, no. We do have some new additions that the Seahawks brought aboard over the past week. In fact, I think we signed Leonard Williams directly after our episode last week, which was kind of nice. Ryan predicted it. We had a little post about it, having a little fun with it last week. But super stoked that he's brought back. I think it's kind of necessary.
I think it was
a second-round
priority
pick. And
number
also,
one,
I mean, he's going to be better immediately than any second-round pick we would have gotten. We're just, breaking out the checkbook. And some other guys, though, I don't know if you wanted to touch up on a couple names you liked.
Sure. So on the same note as Leonard Williams, I actually think we're putting together the most solid D-line we've had in a long time, because you throw him in the mix with Draymond Jones and Jerron Reed. We just drafted Mike Morris, but we didn't get to see what he did or what he could do. But he played for Mike McDonald in college. And you add in Jonathan Hankins from the Cowboys. This guy's been around a long time, 320, 330-pound nose tackle, but can rush the passer at that size, and had a pretty damn good season last year. So he still has, 2 or 3 seasons left in the tank by the looks of it. So you think about it, if you can slide Jerron Reed out to 3-tech instead of being a nose like he played last year, and then, rotate Draymond Jones with God damn it. I'm blanking on his name. Leonard Williams. That's a really formidable front. Like, that is a legitimate good defensive line. So it's really encouraging to see them prioritizing the big guys. And we'll get into it more here in a minute, but now I really need them to do it on the other side of the ball, because there's been 2 offensive line moves we've made so far for 2 reserve players from the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles Rams in Nick Harris and Tremaine Ankrum, respectively. These guys are really depth players. I think if either one of them are starting week 1, that's not a very good offseason at those positions. I do
like the signing to bring back George Fant, though, because when he was a Seahawk, I remember wasn't he like a tight end?
Yeah, he was like the 6th offensive lineman. We used him a lot on the right side. And he was good. Yeah.
I remember being bummed out when he signed with someone and they overpaid the
Jets gave him like $20 million.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, well, that's why your organization's bad. Go ahead, George.
But I've always liked George Fant, and it's kind of cool because he first got drafted by us all the way back in 2016. He's kind of been around for a long time now, and
Was that the Malik McDowell year?
It was the Malik McDowell. 2017 was Malik McDowell year.
Because I feel like, maybe that's correct. That seems more.
But I think what George Fant provides for us is he can be that swing tackle again if we want to dig that out of the playbook and have some stuff like that in our offense this year, but he could also be our Abraham Lucas insurance, because he could start at right tackle and be like a starter, like a quality starter in this league. And he could also be the primary backup for Charles Cross as well. So I think he provides a ton of value what we signed for him. I hope it's not an indication that Abraham Lucas is not going to be ready for the season, but I like that regardless of how that situation shakes out, we have like an adequate contingency plan in place with George Fant.
Do you think, now I don't want to get too much into the draft here because we'll save that for an episode for its own, but the way that our team is structured right now and the moves we made, it kind of seems like we're either going to go guard or center in the first round. Mm-hmm. What do you agree with that?
I
Disagree
think we
with that?
need to. I think that is
I think we should.
Yeah.
But
and we're well set up at 16 to take the best guard or center. You could argue that maybe that's a little high for those positions, but like, I don't know. I think if you can get a good player, it's worth taking wherever you're taking them, you know? Like, think of the best center in the league on the Chiefs, a guy we could have gotten in Creed Humphrey. You know, he was a second-round pick, but looking back at it, if we had taken him in the first round that year, like on draft day, people would have been like, oh, that's a huge reach. Now we would have been stoked because we had an awesome center.
Right.
So I think when people try to galaxy brain their way through like putting a strict value on where positions should be drafted, it's like at a certain point, you got to just get the best player for your situation. So I could see us trading back to like 24, 26, something like that, and then maybe going after Powers Johnson from Oregon as center. Mm-hmm. I'd like that move, especially if it netted us a second-round pick this year or another third. But honestly, my favorite thing I think we could do at 16 is Troy Fontenot from
That's
UW.
what I was going to say. I wouldn't mind the center because, I mean, I think back on the days of having Max Unger, and that was when, you know, our offensive line, we didn't have the greatest five guys out there, but I felt like he was the glue that kept everything together. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I underappreciated centers until, I mean, it seems like we've had a different guy there year in and year out since his departure.
We have.
And
I think we've literally had a different center every year since Justin Britt, like his last year.
Right.
And that was, man, what was that, 2018? I can't even remember now.
It's all kind of those years where we were, you know, out in the first round. They all kind of blend together when we were letting Russ cook and all that.
I feel like we were the same team that was like carried by Russell Wilson for the most part for like 4 years. Then we tried to switch things up. Yeah, new times we're approaching now.
Yeah, but I agree with you. If we took Fautano at 16, I would be relieved because, man, Charles Cross in a perfect healthy situation, Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, and then Fautano at guard. I mean, I could see us maybe even getting another offensive lineman in the fourth or something.
Yeah, if we use our first two picks on interior offensive line, I think that's the smartest thing we could do. Besides maybe drafting Junior Colson, my favorite linebacker in this class, in the third round, that would be a dream for me. Is Fontenot in one, Junior Colson in the third. We'll see what shakes out. We did also sign a couple linebackers in Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker. I don't know a ton about those guys, to be honest. I think like if they're starters this year for us, like it's fine. Like we're not gonna have the best linebacker core in the league, but they will be adequate.
I did see. I don't remember the exact stat or what Pro Football Focus liked him for, but I did see when we signed Dodson from Buffalo that he was a very high praised player. From Pro Football Focus.
I saw that too.
Not the first guy they've gotten, so they've, I guess, been paying attention to Pro Football Focus and getting a lot of these guys that seem to be high on their charts. But
I like the two defensive backs we got in Rayshawn Jenkins and Kevon Wallace. I feel like almost everybody we've signed in free agency so far is someone that can be a significant contributor this next season, but we didn't throw the bag at them, you know? Leonard Williams is the only guy that's gotten big money, which is great. And I think it also solidifies that the free agency approach we've always had it was always a John Schneider thing. A lot of people speculated that Pete Carroll was behind the way we operated primarily, and just kind of looking at how this offseason has gone so far, I feel like, no, John has always had this approach to free agency where you don't overspend. But if you look at teams, let me give you an example. Since 2012, you know what team has spent the most in free agency? The Jacksonville Jaguars. You know what team
that makes sense.
has the worst record in the NFL since 2012? The Jacksonville Jaguars. So there is a pretty strong correlation towards overspending in free agency and sucking.
You know what the Jets just had to, when we'll get into this later, but the Jets just paid Mike Williams $15 million. I think it's a good move for them because they need weapons to help Aaron Rodgers, but I don't want to be doing stuff like that where we're giving guys. We already did that with Jamal Adams. We're eating enough dead money this year. I think we're eating the whole the whole amount of the dead money.
$20 million.
Yeah. So, I saw all these Seahawks fans getting upset that we weren't making moves on day one, and it's just first of all, we've been in free agency for 3 hours. Relax. Secondly, when have we ever done that?
Yeah. And when does I can go all the way back to 2011 when the Eagles that year with Michael Vick, they made a bunch of, or maybe it wasn't even, it might have been Vince Young. Anyways, they made all the splash signings of free agency, and they were calling themselves the Dream Team in the offseason, and then they went 6-10. This happens every year. Some team spends a crazy amount on 3 players, and they look like they're going to be great. And then it's football is 11 on 11, and coaching, there's a lot that plays into it. One player, very seldomly does one player move the needle that much. You look at someone like Tyreek Hill going to the Dolphins, that moves the needle. You look at someone like Matt Stafford going to the Rams, that moved the needle for them. But it's also there's countless examples where do you remember Albert Hainsworth? I know that's going way back, but the Redskins gave him the biggest contract ever at the time. And then he just didn't even play. So it's free agency is not the end all be all of whether or not your team is going to be good or not.
The worst contract I've seen this offseason so far for free agents, Chase Young. He's getting $13 million for 1 year, and he already needs neck surgery. What are they doing? Why were they we'll bet on you, but we only want the year of you where you might re-injure yourself and never play.
And they're oh, you don't need to take a physical. We trust you. Yeah, man, it's actually so much happened that first couple days of free agency, and so many players that have been big names since 2017, but are now getting to the back couple holes of their career, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. There was so much movement that one day. It's kind of hard to keep track of. You had Saquon going to the Eagles, which I thought that was decent. DeAndre Swift getting the contract he did from the Bears, or did he go to the Bears or did he go? Yeah, I was kind of all right.
He's definitely not worth it, but I think the other moves the Bears have done make that signing kind of make sense. For example, trading for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, having him and DJ Moore, and then at pick number 9 this year, they're going to have a really good chance to get Odunze potentially. That would be a deadly 3-receiver set.
I personally think that the Bears, if they were smart, they would draft an offensive lineman because they already have Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. Those are 2 elite. Well, not elite, but
they're
those
good
are
tight
2.
Ends.
Those are pros right there. And you pair them up with the veteran Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, who's ascending even seemingly every season. I think the Bears are going to be legit. And
especially with, I guess, let's bring that up
pivot
now.
To that.
Justin Fields is no longer the Bears quarterback, as we were predicting in the last episode.
Right.
So Caleb Williams is coming on to town. And I know the Bears... Well, you never know. Maybe they pick fucking Drake May, number 1 overall, and everyone's shocked. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is the easiest decision for anyone to make.
I've seen some people think otherwise. In fact, maybe one of the dumbest takes I've seen this offseason came from Robert Griffin III. And Colby, if you want to pull that up, we'll play that for you right now.
Okay, here we go. I haven't actually seen this.
Eli Manning and demand that the Chicago Bears do not draft him number 1 overall. After everything that's happened with just Justin Fields, can Caleb Williams really look at that and say, you know what? This is the organization that has my best interest at heart, and they're going to help develop me into the player that I want to become. Caleb Williams is on record saying that he wants to be legendary. He wants to rewrite history, and he wants to be the best that he can possibly be and win the most games he can possibly win. After the Bears took Justin Fields, the 11th pick in the draft, and turned him into a 6th round pick in the 2025 draft by trading him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, can Caleb Williams really look at that and say, you know what? Yeah, this organization is going to help get me where I want to go? I don't think it's saying that. Eli Manning had power in that 2000.
Yeah. So essentially, I get where Robert Griffin III is coming from, like from an empathetic standpoint. Like, he was drafted by the Redskins in 2012, and then the Redskins took Kirk Cousins later in that very same draft. So, I mean, you got to think there was some disagreements in front office as far as who they wanted at quarterback, and even Kirk Cousins ended up playing for the Redskins years after RG3 was gone. So I think he might be a little bit, PTSD from his experience with Washington, and maybe that's why he's saying that, because in my opinion, there's never been a first-round draft pick quarterback set up for more success than Caleb Williams. They're surrounding him with talent and veteran
certainly
talent.
Not at number 1 overall. I mean, generally when teams are picking number 1 overall, they're fucking horrible.
Exactly.
And they're taking a 21, 22, 23-year-old guy to just go figure it out behind a horrible offensive line throwing to shit usually. But in this situation, he's got 2 top-tier receivers in their prime or at the end of their prime. Offensive line with, some investment in the draft the last couple of years. Good running game, good tight end room, and a defense that really started to turn it on last year. So I agree. I think the Bears could be something next year. And also it's like, okay, so let's say he refuses to play for the Bears. What, are you going to go to the Washington Commanders and expect anything better? Look at how their organization has been since the fucking 90s, basically. They haven't won a playoff game. I can't remember the last time they won a playoff game. They might have the longest active drought. I'm not sure. But they've been really bad for a really long time, and their owner was completely wrapped up in scandals. And then if you don't go there, okay, you're going to New England, where that entire regime is in transition, and they have some of the worst weapons in the league. So I get the sentiment that Robert Griffin is trying to put out there, but it just is dumb.
Also, if Caleb Williams wants to be great, I mean, dude, all you need to do is throw for 4,000 yards, and you're the greatest Bears quarterback to ever play.
Yeah, that's
statistically.
True.
So,
and all you need to do to be better than Justin Fields is throw for 3,000 yards, because I don't think he ever did that. I like Justin Fields. I think he's a really talented player. But I think people let the highlight reel kind of break their brains a little bit with him, because he still has a long way to go as a passer, and we don't know if he's ever gonna take that next step. I think in a fair world he'd be given more time and get more just investment into him, the player, from the organization. But look, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. And I say that without hesitation. I think he's a lot better than Trevor Lawrence looked. I always thought Trevor Lawrence was good, but I didn't really see why he was hyped to be on Andrew Luck's level, but I totally see it with Caleb Williams. He's insane.
Yeah, I watched Caleb Williams' pro day this morning, and it was, I was talking to you about it earlier. It got repetitive after, 3.5 minutes of watching. I was like, okay, I've seen enough. But he was dropping dimes, and every throw looked like what I saw from Michael Penix in the combine. He had an amazing day. He had an amazing workout at the combine. So, and then the stuff he said in an interview with Colin Cowherd afterward kind of made me reevaluate all the things I've been hearing about him in the media. I think someone brought up a narrative that he didn't want to be drafted by Chicago, And I just thought it didn't seem that way in his interview that he just had. It seemed like he's excited to go there. And I don't know if you saw, but Keenan Allen was watching him work out, and they linked up and shook hands and whatnot. But that was kind of cool to see. And I guess I've just kind of changed my perspective on the whole Caleb Williams attitude thing. I'm just going to let it play out and see how it goes.
I think when someone is hyped up really early on in their college career, because he was hyped up at Oklahoma. That was years ago at this point. The longer that microscope is on them before they make it to the NFL, the more little things people are going to find and nitpick about them. Like when people are saying they don't want to draft him because he paints his fingernails, it's like, what are we doing, guys? Come on. Like, watch the fucking games. That's all I got to say with Caleb Williams. Like, if you watch Caleb Williams tape and you don't think he's going to be good, like, I mean, you could be right, but I can't think of a guy that's looked more a sure thing.
Right.
Like, since Andrew Luck, basically. And it's the thing that blows me away about him is, like, in structure, he can do absolutely everything. But what he does out of structure is already as good as, like, you know, the freaks, like the Mahomes, the Allens, the Peak Wilson, the Aaron Rodgers type of escapes and just throwing these accurate dimes downfield. He's already doing that as like a young 21, 22-year-old. So when he gets his mental game, if he gets his mental game on par with, you know, the top guys out there, he's going to be just as dangerous as any quarterback in the league today.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Bears, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think they're doing a fantastic job surrounding him with the veterans they need. I mean, Keenan Allen going up, and I mean, that all but essentially solidified the fact that he's going to the Bears. I mean, they probably wouldn't want him there if they were like, we're not drafting him.
Yeah.
You know, so, and Keenan Allen's a new addition to the team. So I imagine they probably were like, oh yeah, that, like, they either gave the thumbs up or were the ones that told him to go.
I will say, I think the crucial mistake the Bears have made so far in this rebuild is not trading Justin Fields when they could have gotten more value for him. They should have traded him in like December, because they might have.
When I traded you Justin Fields.
We don't talk about that on this podcast.
I traded him at the height of his value.
You did. But he also got me a lot of points for 2 years, so I don't really see it as a total loss. But anyways, they could have potentially got a second or third round pick in this year's draft for him like a few months ago, and they end up getting a conditional 6th rounder in next year's draft when Kenny Pickett got more than that, when Desmond Ridder, I think, got more than that. Like, come on. Like, I don't care how bad you think Justin Fields is. He's a lot better than those two guys.
Well, and apparently, word on the street, he's going to be the backup. Russ was, promised by Mike Tomlin, according to, word of mouth, that he's going to be the starter, and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields is going to be backing up, making $3.2 million. And a lot of people are speculating, why would they make that trade if they're not going to pick up next year's option? And I think they're going to, no matter if he plays any snaps this year for the Steelers. And my reasons why is because look how much they're paying him and Russell Wilson right now. It's around $4.5 million. They're basically
them combined are cheaper than just Drew Lock.
Yeah, so they're basically not paying what a normal quarterback money would be this season, and then they'll just pay it down the road next year. I mean, because they're already saving X amount of dollars. They owe Justin Fields, I think, $25.6 or something on the 5th-year option. Why wouldn't they do that if they're saving all the money this year? They can make up for it next year in signing Fields. So
yeah, and the cap will go up more than likely. But
exactly.
Yeah, I think Fields should sit a year behind Russ, because I think, Russ is a lot better than Justin Fields right now, even where he's at in his career. And I think people that think otherwise are just a little ignorant, to be honest, for lack of a better way to put it. But I do think, to pivot to Russ for a little bit, I think this is kind of his last chance to show that he's like a, top 15, top 10 starting caliber quarterback in this league. because I think he's going to a good situation in Pittsburgh where he can get back to what made him great. And, if they have a decent year, they make the playoffs, let's say he wins a playoff game, and then he's a free agent again in 2025, he gets one more chance at having a multi-year contract in the NFL as a starter somewhere. Maybe he moves on to a team that is looking for a quarterback, and then Justin Fields comes in for Pittsburgh the next season as their starter. So I think they're set up well at that position now to, if they choose to do so, commit to either one of those guys long term. It's going to be really interesting to watch, though. I can't think of a situation like this really ever that's that comparable to it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the Steelers are going to be a team to watch next year, and I guess we had some teams like that entering last season, the Jets, and they turned out to be unwatchable after 6 snaps.
But Zach Wilson isn't on the Steelers last time I checked, so that will help.
yeah, for sure. I don't really have a whole lot else along with what happened this past week in free agency. Do you have anything more you wanted to add before we sign off here?
Not really. After that initial first week with the flurry of moves, it's kind of died down here, and we're kind of just all pivoting to the draft, I think. So I'm excited. I think maybe on next podcast we'll do our first mock, maybe just a first round or something like that, and start digging into this rookie class that I think at the very least in the top 100 is pretty special.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm very much looking forward to doing my Pro Football Reference mock draft where they let you control any team, like we did last year. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you got to subscribe to it now, which is annoying to do the full thing.
Are you sure? I did it a month ago.
Oh, I was thinking of the Pro Football Focus one.
Yeah, the reference one is I feel like they're almost the same.
The difference is they just weight the value of players way differently. So
probably more accurately with the AI they use, I imagine.
I think
Focus.
Yeah, that one I think is more accurate because when you get into the 4th, 5th round of the other one, it's who is this guy?
Shout out to the Cougs playing at 7 p.m.
Yep.
Against the Bulldogs.
Drake.
So.
Yeah. They're I got Cougs going to the Sweet 16, so I need them to win tonight.
This is pretty exciting for.
Yeah, shit. I didn't realize we were already in the bracket.
And their rankings, they were seeded 7th.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's a pretty high seed.
Yeah, they win this game, they'll probably more than likely be playing Iowa State.
Is there just signal?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, you should come back.
Perhaps. But I think that's all we got for this one. So.
Yep. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yep. See you next time.